Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through the informational clutter, stack up the source material, and extract the high-value insights you need to be thoroughly well-informed.
Today, we're doing something a little different. We're undertaking a very intimate investigation.
That's the perfect word for it.
We're not looking at imperial decrees or, grand historical accounts. We are peering directly into the private, innermost thoughts of one of history's most powerful men, Marcus Aurelius Antoninus, Emperor of Rome.
Right. Our main source today is the Meditations. And what makes this text so incredible, so timeless, really, is that intimacy you mentioned.
Exactly.
These are not polished speeches. They're not policy papers. The sources are crystal clear on this. He never meant for anyone to read these writings. They were sent down, while he was on military campaigns simply to ease his heart.
It's his personal journal.
It is. It's a soul's workout regime written by a philosopher king who was, frankly, struggling to hold it all together while his world was basically coming apart at the seams.
And that struggle, that internal battle against this backdrop of just immense external pressure is why we're doing this deep dive for you. Our mission is kind of twofold. First, we want to give you a quick but really solid understanding of the emperor's life, which was incredibly difficult, and the Stoic philosophy that was, well, his only real anchor.
And the second part?
The second part is the most important. We need to pull out the practical, life-changing ideas from that philosophy, the actionable wisdom that you can actually apply to your own life for, greater resilience. We're looking for the shortcuts to Stoic strength.
It's such a paradox, isn't it? This is a man who had legions at his command. He ruled the entire civilized world. The wealth and power he had are just unimaginable to us today.
Completely.
And yet here he is in his tent on the frontier somewhere, writing notes to himself about how to keep his temper, how to deal with an annoying colleague. He had power over everything outside, but the real war was inside.
And that irony is perfectly captured in a quote that always comes up when you study his work. Remember this, that very little is needed to make a happy life.
Think about that. The Emperor of Rome, who had literally everything, concludes that happiness needs very little.
Yeah.
If that's his conclusion, then we who are constantly told happiness is the next phone, the next job title, we absolutely have to understand how he got there.
We do.
That journey to what he called the inner citadel, that unbreakable fortress in your mind, that's the real question driving our deep dive today.
Okay, let's start with the man. You can't understand the philosophy without understanding the pressure he was under.
Right. First, we need to see the man. And he wasn't born with that famous name, was he?
No, not at all. He was born M. Annius Verus on April 26, 121 AD. His family was top tier, claiming they were descended from Numa, one of Rome's earliest kings.
The most pious of early kings, I think the sources say.
That's the one. So from day one, this kid is surrounded by this expectation of serious, virtuous character. Piety, tradition, duty, it's all baked in.
He had what you might call a gilded cage for a childhood, but one that was built on some serious discipline. He lost his parents early, but he was guided by these really exceptional people.
Absolutely. The emperor at the time, Hadrian, noticed him when he was just a boy. He saw this incredible integrity in him and started calling him Verissimus.
Which means?
More truthful. As in, more truthful than his own name, Verus, which means true. It was a huge compliment.
Right.
And his path was pretty much sealed when he was adopted by Antoninus Pius, which put him directly in line for the throne. The training he got wasn't just about politics, it was deeply ethical.
We get such a rare look into that training, the very first book of the Meditations. It's amazing. It's not a philosophical argument. It's just a long list of thank yous.
Debts of gratitude. It's an incredible document of humility. It shows you exactly what he valued long before he had the purple robe.
What are some of the big ones? Who does he thank?
Well, he thanks his grandfather for teaching him to be gentle and meek, to refrain from all anger and passion.
Okay, that's something the Emperor of Rome is definitely going to need.
Oh, absolutely. He thanks his mother for teaching him to be religious and bountiful and single-minded. Notice, it's never about conquering or power. It's all internal stuff.
And what about his tutors? They seem to have had a massive impact.
Huge. He thanks his master, Apollonius, for teaching him true liberty, and I love this phrase, unvariable steadfastness.
Unvariable steadfastness.
Yeah. This wasn't just a concept. Apollonius was the living example of how to be the same man, whether you're in agonizing pain or you've just lost a child, which Marcus did over and over, or you're suffering from a long illness.
That is powerful.
And then there's Rusticus. This guy was clearly not afraid to call out a student, even if he was the future emperor. Marcus thanks him specifically for showing him that his life needed amending.
So he's grateful to the person who told him he was flawed.
Exactly. A young man who's going to rule the world, and one of his biggest debts is to the guy who gave him harsh, honest criticism. That tells you everything you need to know about his character. He knew improvement required brutal honesty, not just praise.
And that character, that discipline, was immediately put to the test. The ultimate test, really.
I mean, the moment he takes power in 161 AD, it's just one crisis after another. He's the last of the 5 good emperors, but his reign felt like anything but good.
It was chaos from the start.
Total chaos. Wars erupted immediately. You had the Parthian revolt in the east, then this huge, serious coalition of Germanic tribes on the Danube frontier, the Marcomanni, the Quadi,
The wars he was famous for.
the ones where he was writing the Meditations. He spent more than a decade living in a campaign tent on the front lines. This was not a life of palace luxury. It was mud and war.
And the problems weren't just on the frontiers, were they?
Not even close. While he's fighting, Rome itself is falling apart. The soldiers returning from the Parthian War brought back a plague.
The Antonine Plague.
Yep. Almost certainly smallpox. The sources suggest it killed millions across the empire, maybe a quarter of the population in some places.
Unimaginable.
It led to economic collapse, famine. The state was basically broke. He was so desperate for cash to pay the soldiers and feed people that he had to sell off the imperial family's jewels and treasures in a public auction.
He sold the crown jewels, basically.
The crown jewels, the tapestries, the gold plates, everything. It was an act of desperation that showed just how bad things were.
And on top of all that, he had to deal with his co-emperor, Lucius Verus.
Oh, Verus, that must have been incredibly frustrating for him. Marcus, the dutiful philosopher, appoints Verus to share the burden.
And Verus does what?
He plunges into drunkenness and debauchery. He basically parties while his generals fight the war for him. His death in 169 must have been a strange kind of relief for Marcus.
So we have war, plague, bankruptcy, an incompetent colleague. And this brings us to what the sources call the great blot on his reign.
The persecution of the Christians. Yeah, this is the deep contradiction. Here's a man famous for his justice, for protecting the weak, for making the lives of slaves better.
And yet he's the emperor who oversees the execution of figures like Justin Martyr and Polycarp.
It's hard to square that circle. The philosopher who preaches kindness and the emperor who allows martyrdom.
How do the sources explain it?
The context is key. For the Romans, religion pietas was a civic duty. You did the rituals to keep the state safe and prosperous.
It was a transaction.
A total transaction. And the sources say Marcus knew Christians only from calumny, from rumors and prejudice. He saw the refusal to sacrifice to the Roman gods not as a theological issue, but as a political threat. He saw it as superstitio.
And superstitio was a much more serious charge than just having a different belief.
Oh, way more serious. It was seen as a kind of treason. He viewed them as sectaries, violently and passionately set upon opposition. Their refusal to conform looked like stubbornness, like a force deliberately trying to destabilize the empire at the very moment it was most fragile.
So his commitment to pragmatic duty kind of blinded his philosophical judgment.
It seems so. It's a hard lesson that even the most rational leader is still a product of their time and their culture's biases.
And this relentless external pressure was mirrored by just profound personal tragedy.
He was known to adore his children. You can see their faces in Roman statues. They look so innocent. But he had to watch so many of them die young.
And then there was his surviving son, Commodus.
Ah, Commodus. Perhaps the cruelest irony of his life. After spending his entire existence focused on virtue and good governance, his heir turns out to be, as the sources say, weak and worthless.
He became a ferocious and bloodthirsty tyrant.
And undid almost all of his father's good work immediately. It's a deeply painful thing for a Stoic to confront, this idea that your life's work can be wiped out by something you can't control, like the character of your own son.
To get the full picture of the man, though, we have to talk about his mentor, Fronto. These letters between them are just fantastic. They show a completely different side of Marcus.
They're pure gold. They show Marcus as a young man, a very serious young man, but a normal one. Fronto was always teasing him, complaining that he was too solemn.
Reading philosophy books at parties?
Exactly. He said he was no good company because he was always reading in the theater or at banquets. He just couldn't switch off.
My favorite story is the one about the sheep. It just seems so out of character for the Marcus we think we know.
It's wonderful. Marcus is riding his horse. He hears a shepherd complaining about robbers. And on this youthful impulse, he just spurs his horse right into the flock of sheep and scatters them everywhere.
And the shepherd gets mad and throws his fork at them.
And they have to make our escape. It's just a moment of pure, silly, irresponsible fun. A glimpse of the playful person who was later buried under the weight of the world.
But the real irony comes when you look at the Meditations. After all those years of friendship, all those letters, he only mentions Fronto once.
Just once. And it's so cold. So detached.
What's the lesson he takes from this deep, loving relationship?
It's a brutally political one. He says Fronto taught him not to expect natural affection from the highly born. He distills this whole rich personal friendship down to one cynical piece of political advice.
That's the Stoic discipline right there. Prioritizing utility over sentiment.
Ruthlessly. Even with his dearest mentor.
Okay, so that's the man. Born into privilege, but crushed by war, plague, and loss. It's so clear why he needed a philosophy, an anchor, just to survive.
He absolutely did. The external world was just a storm of chaos.
Which brings us to section 2. Let's do a deep dive on the anchor itself, Stoicism.
The context here is really important. Why this philosophy? Because the traditional Roman religion was, frankly, useless for a moral person like Marcus.
You called it a transaction before.
It was a bargain, the sources say. You do the rites, the gods give you favor. It had nothing to do with being a good person. It offered zero internal peace. So serious people looked to philosophy for that.
And in the philosophical world back then, the big rivalry was Stoicism versus Epicureanism.
The two heavyweights. And both of them promised ataraxia or freedom from disturbance, but they had completely opposite ways of getting there.
So Epicureanism was about what? Avoiding pain?
Pretty much. Peace through avoiding disturbance. Which, for some people, could just become an excuse for unbridled license. Just seeking pleasure.
And Stoicism was the opposite.
The exact opposite. It demanded stubborn endurance. It was about confronting pain and difficulty with reason, not trying to run away from it.
So where did this school of thought come from?
It was founded by a guy named Zeno around 300 BC. He used to teach in a public space in Athens called the Painted Porch, the Stoa. That's where the name comes from.
Stoicism. Makes sense.
Later, it was systematized by thinkers like Chrysippus. He was so important they had a saying, but for Chrysippus, there had been no porch.
And what was the ultimate goal for a Stoic? What was the mission?
The end game was to live in conformity with nature. Homologumenos tai physizein.
Which doesn't just mean like hiking and camping.
Right. For the Stoics, nature was the universal reason, the logical divine force that governs the entire cosmos. So to live in conformity with nature meant to live in conformity with reason and virtue. The highest good was to consciously work with God for the common good.
Okay, let's break down how they structured this. Because it wasn't just a list of rules. They divided philosophy into 3 parts: physics, logic, and ethics. Let's start with physics.
Stoic physics was their view of the cosmos, and for Marcus, it must have been an incredible comfort. They saw the universe as essentially materialism with an infusion of pantheism.
Okay, unpack that for us.
It means they believed everything was made of matter, but that matter itself was divine. The universe is God, one single, vast, rational, living thing.
So our own souls are?
Just a tiny spark of that universal reason, a little piece of God that's temporarily in our bodies and will be reabsorbed into the whole thing when we die.
That idea that everything is part of one rational, divine system, that has to be a powerful weapon against anxiety.
It's the ultimate weapon. If the universe is God and God is rational, then nothing that happens is truly random or meaningless, even a plague or a lost battle.
It has a purpose.
It has a purpose within the grand scheme of things. It's necessary for the health of the whole cosmos, so you can't see it as a personal injustice. You have to see it as your part to play and accept it.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, so that's the worldview. Let's move to logic. How do they train the mind to actually live in that world without freaking out?
Logic for them was all about mental hygiene. They knew that we don't suffer from events themselves, but from our judgments about events.
The story we tell ourselves.
Exactly. So they developed this test for truth, a criterion. They called it the holding perception, or cataleptic fantasia.
That sounds complicated.
The idea is simple, though. It's an impression on your mind that is so clear, so obviously true, that it's irresistible. Like a seal pressed into wax, the impression is perfect.
So what's the goal of the training?
The goal is to train yourself to only agree with, to only say yes to those crystal clear factual impressions and to withhold judgment on everything else.
Give me an example.
Okay. So, your boss criticizes your work. The raw, irresistible impression is, my boss said these specific words. A faulty judgment is, my boss hates me, I'm going to be fired, I'm a total failure.
Right.
Stoic logic trains you to stop at the first part, just the facts. And by doing that, you neutralize the emotional poison.
Which leads us directly to ethics, the third part.
Right. Ethics is just applying that clear-eyed, rational view to your actions to achieve the highest good.
Yeah.
And for the Stoics, the highest good is virtue, and only virtue.
This gets us to the really radical part of Stoicism, the part people find so difficult. The ideal of the wise man and this concept of apatheia.
Yeah, this is where it gets tough. The ideal wise man is sufficient unto himself in all things. Autarks, he's striving for apatheia.
And we have to be really clear here. Apatheia is not apathy.
Not at all. It's not about not caring. It's a technical term. It means the absence of destructive passions, like irrational fear or crippling grief or wild celebration. It's being inwardly unshakable no matter what fortune throws at you.
But doesn't that make you cold? Uncaring. Marcus was clearly a compassionate ruler.
That's a crucial distinction. The wise man gets rid of pathos, the destructive passions, but he keeps what they called eupathai, the good feelings. He acts with justice and kindness and love because reason demands it for the common good.
So he does the right thing, but without the emotional turmoil.
He acts without being crippled by fear or rage. The virtue is in the rational action itself.
Which brings us to their most shocking category, indifferent things, adiaphora.
This is the one that blows people's minds. Health, wealth, poverty, pleasure, pain, all the things our society obsesses over.
The Stoics called them indifferent.
Completely indifferent. Their logic was, if wealth were a true good, a bad person couldn't have it. If poverty were a true evil, a good person couldn't endure it with dignity.
So these things are just...
The scenery. They're the arena. They are the neutral stage where you get to practice virtue.
That is an incredibly high standard.
It is. And later Stoics added a little nuance, which is really helpful for us learners. They divided the indifference into things that are preferable and things that are undesirable.
So it's okay to prefer being healthy.
Of course. It's preferable to be healthy than sick because it helps you do your duty, but you must never, ever mistake that preference for your actual happiness or your virtue. Your health is not you.
And this all boils down to the most practical tool in the whole philosophy, the one Marcus comes back to again and again.
The dichotomy of control. This is the key to freedom.
What's in our power versus what's not.
Exactly. Marcus hammers this home. The things in our power are very few. Our opinions, our judgments, our desires, our aversions, our inner world.
And what's not in our power.
Basically everything else. Your health, your wealth, your reputation, what other people think of you, the outcome of the war, whether the plague hits.
And the Stoic commitment is to focus only on the first list.
100%. You control your inner life, and you accept or wisely navigate everything else. The moment you tie your happiness to something external, something you don't control, you've made yourself a slave to fortune.
You're just setting yourself up for misery.
Constant misery. Because you're worrying about things that were never yours to begin with. The real power move isn't gaining more control over the world. It's letting go of the illusion that you ever had it.
Okay, so now we move from the theory of Stoicism to Marcus Aurelius's personal user manual, the Meditations. This is where the rubber meets the road.
Absolutely. This is the philosophy being stress-tested in real time by an emperor at war. He's relentlessly focused on these practical, moment-to-moment corrections.
It's all about building and defending that inner citadel, the fortress of the mind.
It is. And he's constantly reminding himself of that core principle we just talked about. All is but opinion and conceit. External things can't actually touch your soul.
Right. He says they don't have legs, they can't get inside you.
All the tumult and all the trouble comes from your internal opinion. Your fear, your anger, your disappointment, it only exists because you choose to slap that emotional label on an otherwise neutral event.
And he gives a very specific technique for stripping those labels off. This constant, rigorous reflection.
This is the practical application of Stoic logic. He says you have to regularly dissect any troubling thought. You have to ask yourself, what is this that now my fancy is set upon? Of what things doth it consist? How long can it last?
It's like doing a mental inventory, a reality check.
A total reality check.
Yeah.
You strip away the story and look at the raw data. If you're afraid of giving a big presentation, you break it down. What is it? It's speaking words to people. in a room. What is the actual physical reality? By doing that, you stop it from being this big, scary monster in your head.
And I love his idea about mental retreat. If it feels so modern, he sees people looking for escape, trying to get away to country villages, the seashore, mountains.
Even he wanted that, but then he gives the counterargument.
Which is that it's useless if you just take your stressed out mind with you.
Exactly. He says, a man cannot any whither retire better than to his own soul. Your rational mind is always there. It's a sanctuary that costs no money and requires no travel time. You can go there in the middle of a traffic jam or a terrible meeting.
That internal freedom is the goal.
It is. And you need it, because the second great challenge for Marcus was dealing with other people. Just an endless stream of difficult, ungrateful, wicked people.
Something we can all relate to.
He starts from that Stoic physics idea that we're all part of the same body. We're born to be fellow workers as the feet, the hands, and the eyelids. We're all in this together.
And he has that famous morning routine. It's like a pre-flight checklist for social interaction.
It is. He tells himself first thing in the morning, this day I shall have to do with an idle, curious man, with an unthankful man, a railer, a crafty, false, or an envious man.
He's mentally preparing for the worst.
He is. But here's the genius part. He immediately follows it up with why they act that way. He reminds himself that they're like this because they're ignorant of that which is truly good and truly bad.
So they're not evil. They're just mistaken.
They're mistaken. They're chasing the wrong things. And he reminds himself that this person, this difficult person, is still his kinsman, not by blood, but by participation of the same reason and of the same divine particle.
They share that spark of divinity.
They do. And if they're just mistaken, how can their mistake truly harm him? It can't. The only person their vice can really hurt is them. His job is to respond with virtue, not to get dragged down to their level.
If you get angry at a fool, you just become another fool.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And he's very specific about the antidote to their wickedness.
And it's surprisingly gentle.
The proper virtue is goodness and meekness as an antidote. He says, don't fly off the handle. Instead, teach them better. And this is key. Not scoffingly, but tenderly, without any harshness of words. You're trying to instruct, not humiliate.
And the best revenge
is not to become like unto them. You win by maintaining your own virtue. That's the only victory that matters.
Okay, let's move to the third practical pillar.
Right.
Accepting destiny and mortality. This is him staring into the void.
He deals with this existential fear by presenting a choice, a stark binary dilemma. He says you have to believe in either a providence or Democritus, his atoms.
There's no middle ground.
No. Option A, the universe is ordered, rational, and divine. Providence.
And if you believe that?
Then you must accept your lot, because it happens justly. You're a part of a single cosmic city, and whatever is good for the city as a whole can't be bad for you, the individual part. Your suffering has a purpose in the grand scheme.
Okay, that's one path. What's the other? Atoms.
Atoms. Democritus is atoms. The universe is random, chaotic, meaningless. There are no gods, no plan, just a swirl of matter. The modern scientific view, basically.
So what's the Stoic response to that?
He says, even if you believe that, you should congratulate yourself. Because in all that chaos, you still possess a reasonable faculty to govern your own life. You can still create a small island of order and virtue in your own mind, regardless of the senseless storm outside. So either way, providence or atoms. The practical action is the same.
Control what you can control. Your inner world.
Exactly. And this reframes how he sees death. He doesn't see life's shortness as a tragedy.
No, he sees it as a kind of mercy almost.
It is. He argues that the longest life and the shortest life come both to one effect, because you can only ever lose the present moment. The past is gone, the future isn't here. You only ever lose the now.
He calls life a warfare and a mere pilgrimage.
And he directly attacks the fear of change, which is so tied to the fear of death. He asks, why would you fear change? Nature loves change.
He uses those very simple analogies.
They're so grounding. Food has to change to become nourishment. Wood has to change into ash to heat your bath. Change is natural and necessary. So death is just another natural change. It's a release from the tyranny of the passions, the errors of the mind, and the servitude of the body. If it's natural, it can't be evil.
Let's finish with two of his most powerful, hands-on tactics for finding happiness. First, what you call the stripping technique.
This is his method for radical honesty. It's a defense mechanism against social pressure and desire. He says you have to penetrate the appearance of things to see their vileness.
to strip away the hype, the outward pomp and appearance that he calls a great juggler.
He does, and he gets really graphic with it. He says a beautiful purple robe, a symbol of power and wealth, is just sheep's hair dyed with shellfish blood.
Wow.
He reduces sex, coitus, to but the attrition of an ordinary base entrail and the excretion of a little vile civil.
Blunt. But the point isn't to be disgusted, right?
No, the point is to be clear, to see the raw physical reality of things. When you do that, you strip away the false value that society and your own passions have attached to them. Once you see things for what they are, you can redefine what's actually good.
Which for him is eudaimonia, true happiness.
Which is good inclinations of the soul, good desires, good actions, things that are actually yours.
And the final tool, the prayer test. This is maybe the most practical thing for a listener to try today.
The prayer test from Book 9 is the ultimate application of the dichotomy of control. He says to look at what you pray for, what you desperately wish for.
And most of us pray for outcomes.
Exactly. We pray, please don't let me lose my job, or please let my child be safe. Things that are not in our power, Marcus says to flip it. Pray instead for the virtuous state that is in your power.
So instead of praying not to lose your child, you pray for the strength not to fear losing him.
Precisely. You pray, grant unto me that thou mayst neither fear nor lust after any of those worldly things. You're not asking for an external rescue, you're asking for internal strength.
If you're worried about a big project at work failing, you don't pray for it to succeed.
You pray for the courage to handle failure with grace and the resilience to start over. It's a total shift from magical thinking to moral action. The only thing worth working on is your own character.
A fundamental psychological shift.
Let's bring it all together. Our mission was to get a real functional understanding of Marcus Aurelius and his philosophy. And I think the core takeaway is pretty clear.
Go for it.
Freedom, strength, happiness. They don't come from getting more stuff or more power. They come from one single recognition that only your inner life, your opinions, your judgments, your virtue is truly yours. Everything else is basically neutral scenery.
And the really encouraging part for all of us is that Marcus himself knew he was failing at this all the time. He never claimed he was a perfect wise man.
Not for a second. Late in his life, he's writing in his journal, "Thou art now ready to die, and yet hast thou not attained to that perfect simplicity. Nor art thou void of all fear of external things."
He was still a work in progress.
He was. And that's the point. It's not a destination you arrive at. It's a lifelong practice, a constant struggle. And that struggle is the work.
To leave you with a final thought, something to chew on, let's look at one of Marcus's most uncomfortable reflections on mortality and our relationships.
Okay, so Marcus believes the universe is always changing, reabsorbing matter to make new things. And he says that when we die, we should depart as from friends and kinsmen. A peaceful parting.
But then he adds a brutal dose of honesty.
He does. He says that in that moment, you have to accept that those same friends and kinsmen might secretly, even in their grief, be a little relieved you're gone. Because, he says, they might think they shall live happier without you.
That is just a cold, hard look at human self-interest, even from the man who preached universal fellowship.
And that leads to our final provocative question for you to meditate on. What does it truly mean to love and be kind to the people in your life who might be an obstacle to you? The difficult colleagues, the frustrating family members, knowing that you have to maintain your own virtue, your own meekness without letting them compromise you, while also accepting that their eventual relief at your passing is just another natural, indifferent event in the cosmic plan. That tension between our duty to others and the flawed, messy reality of human nature, that's why Marcus Aurelius is still essential reading today.
Profound point. Thank you for joining us on the Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.